Fam, what is going on? Good morning. What is going on? It is Kyle Anderson of Bama Football on YouTube. Thank you for being here, right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Today on the show, we got the injury report for the Tennessee game. You got Alabama versus Tennessee head-to-head in some numbers that might be alarming, okay? But I'm going to walk you through it and explain the graphics that you're about to see. So viewer discretion is advised. All right, keys of the game, how to beat Tennessee, what we want to see from Alabama in this particular game. We got the college football schedule that is upcoming. And then has Ryan Williams hit a freshman wall? Yesterday was an interesting interview by head football coach Marcus Shepard. Honestly, I'll save you it, and if you got to go. I think he was just basically using the media to get to Ryan Williams, that Ryan Williams hasn't hit a wall. And he was like, why would you cover him? I think he was just messing around. But, you know, look, I mean, he didn't score a touchdown against South Carolina, right? Something must be wrong. Just kidding. All right, I'm rocking the Hollywood gear. If you want to support the athletes, go over to Athletes Thread, and you can buy your hoodies, or you can let me know. If you've done that before. Also, you can get the hats at the student store or at Chris Mobley here in Tuscaloosa. Talked about why my confidence is growing every single day that we get closer to this game. And then I started kind of diving into some numbers, and I was like, Tennessee's defense, they're pretty good. But when I dove into the numbers, it kind of explained why. Chris, what's up, man? I appreciate you being here. Tempit, what's going on? Bryce Craig, what's up? Good morning to you. Big Chev, what's up, man? Myron, what's going on? Amanda, good morning. Sammy, what's up? I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for joining me on the show right here on Bama Football on YouTube. So the first official injury report is out. But before we get to that, let's go to North Alabama Storm Chase and look at the weekend weather for this matchup in the SEC up in Knoxville. Yo, it was cold this morning here in Tuscaloosa for the workouts. I think it was like 39, 40 degrees. So you got to get the hoodie on and even the beanie. I'm not going to lie, I was cold this morning. The tailgate temperature for this 2:30 kickoff will be 66 degrees. That's a nice tailgate. And then you got the game time temp for 72, and then fourth quarter, of course, will be 66 degrees. So that is amazing football weather. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you're going up to Knoxville, if you're going out to another game, should be a fantastic weekend for football. Now, when you look to this injury report that was released yesterday, Coach Kalen DeBoer talked a little bit about it during his SEC teleconference. And then, of course, every single night leading up to the game at 7:10 p.m. Central Time, you get a full update from the SEC, right? Beth James, I appreciate the feedback on the hoodie. So right now, the players that are listed as probable: Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, Damani Jackson. Yanze Bier is listed as questionable. And then Caden Jones, a young freshman, he's listed as out. So starting up at the top with Kendrick Law, never really heard what type of injury it exactly is. Just heard that it's a lower leg injury. He didn't play last week. You know, the way that he's been utilized this season in Alabama's offense is more of a downfield blocker, right? An elite stock blocker that has helped big runs down the field. He has 2 receptions, which is obviously surprising. I think if you were to poll any Alabama football fan, they would like to see production from Kendrick Law, but it's not like it has completely slowed down Alabama's offense. I mean, they're still ranked number 10 in the country in a lot of different parameters. They're still scoring 41 points a game, but we would like to see Kendrick Law. It's just, the offense has been, they've still been productive. I would like to see him on a jet ski. How about Kendrick Law on a shovel pass, right? So probable, we'll keep you posted as we get closer to Saturday. Kobe Prentice, same thing. He had a concussion against Vanderbilt. I would imagine that he's close to being done with those protocols. In his place at the slot receiver has been Cole Adams, who had a really nice game against South Carolina. I think that just shows you the depth that Alabama has. Kobe's the man. Hopefully he comes back because he certainly is an added weapon to Alabama's arsenal of receivers. But I just think that whole room, there's so many guys at receivers. Like Max is saying inside the comment box, there is so much depth. I mean, your 2s, even your 3s, those guys are absolutely fantastic. Big Chev is mentioning that Alabama's number 1 in the recruiting rankings. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit yesterday. Look, if you want positive news, zoom out. Don't get because I think what's happening to a majority of people is they're stuck in these last I don't know, 10 days or whatever of college football. But if you want to feel better, zoom out and look at everything that's going on from an outside perspective, and you'll feel a lot better. And it would probably take away some of your anxiety, right? TC's asking, why is your channel volume recorded lower than the average videos that I watch on YouTube? Maybe turn your volume up. My video, the audio is coming through really good. I can see the levels. Keep me posted on that, TC. Appreciate it. Is anybody else having low volume issues? I mean, I could see like my levels right now, and it looks like they're pretty good. Damani Jackson listed as probable after it looked like some sort of a bruised hip or something like that he had against South Carolina. I'm glad he was able to come back and perform at a high level. Got the last interception, right? Yanzi Pierre still questionable. And Caden Jones, I have no idea what the injury is for the inside linebacker, and he's out. But before we move forward, I mean, I've spoken a lot about this. Is like, I think people talking, kind of stuck in the last like 10 days or whatever. I feel that if you zoom out and you look to what's really going on with Alabama football, there's like things are really good. Are they great? Are they perfect? No. But man, like number one in recruiting, I think tells you so much right now. And when here's when you start to get worried, is when you start to see top level recruits start bailing and you start to lose consecutive games, right? And you start to have continued, setbacks and fallbacks. Like the SEC, number one, is absolute grind. Every single week is going to be challenging. This game against Tennessee is going to be challenging. On the road, there's a million reasons why, right? They actually have the number 2 ranked defense in the country. We're about to talk about that next. But the number one recruiting tells you what's happening behind the scenes. It tells you that these coaches, that players absolutely believe in the coaching staff. It tells you that people still want to be a part of this brand of Alabama football. It tells you that Alabama is absolutely still the school that prospects want to come to. And when you play in marquee games, I mean, now that ESPN has these contracts for Alabama, my goodness, man. Like the TV ratings, I can't even, what was it, 14 million against Georgia? This game against Tennessee, it's right before Texas and Georgia. So the recruiting, the number one ranking, I think it tells you so much about Alabama football. Plus, they're 5-1, 2-1 at SEC. And this is the other thing, Bama Mike. I know there was a little bit of talk about Keelan Russell maybe going to Colorado or something like that. He put all that to bed, right? What's up, Army? I appreciate you being here. Today is Thursday. We're talking Alabama versus Tennessee as we get to the third weekend of October. By the way, if you need a good cigar, I don't have any sponsors, but my buddy Reagan Starner owns R&R Cigar here in Tuscaloosa. Definitely, if you're in the area or next time you visit, you can pick up some cigars from his spot. He's actually got a really nice bar that's set up so you can have a drink in there, go over your different cigars. He's got a nice, a gigantic selection. It's a mansion. So you can go there and just post up and smoke a cigar and enjoy yourself. So that's where I get my cigars, and that's where you should get your cigars too. All right, so let's talk about Alabama versus Tennessee. And this week I've been pretty adamant that I feel more confident every single day going into this matchup, right? I feel that Alabama's quite frankly the better team. I am confident that the offense will be able to score, and that Tennessee, I don't feel that Tennessee has the offense to outshoot Alabama in a scoring match. Plus, like, Alabama plays well on the road. And what I mean by that is, like, they've been in big time atmospheres. People are like, they're not going to be able to hear in Rocky Top. Well, they played in Texas A&M last year. Jalen Milroe, right? Went up to Wisconsin last year against Auburn. So they're accustomed to playing in big time environments. So I started like zooming in to like head to head, and I wanted to either do like Pro Football Focus grades to head to head, but then I was like, let me do like actual NCAA stats like head to head. And this was actually really surprising. And Tennessee has pretty much the edge in all of this. Okay, let me walk you through it. Alabama versus Tennessee. I mean, I guess if you went off this little chart right here, man, Tennessee should absolutely win this game. Seriously, if we went off this chart, and this is not embellished, these are like statistical facts. I'm going to explain how we got here, but here's where we are with Tennessee and Alabama head to head. Alabama has the number 35 offense in the country. Tennessee has the number 9. Okay. Defense, Alabama is number 55. Tennessee has the number 2 ranked defense in the country. I didn't even know that. Third down defense, at one point, Alabama was number 1. Third down defense, Tennessee's number 2. Penalties, Alabama's ranked 113, averaging like 74 a game. Actually, Tennessee has a lot of penalties too. They just haven't been for the same amount of yards as Alabama's. I think they have the same amount of penalties, which is like 46 on the season. And time of possession, Alabama's ranked 109, Tennessee's ranked 79. These teams don't really hold the football that frequently. So I was like, okay, so Tennessee, like, what stood out to me was like the offense and really the defense. I was like, damn, the number 2 ranked defense in the country? Couple things to note. Number 1, they just lost their very talented inside linebacker, right? Peely. He's out for the season with the ACL that he suffered against Florida. But besides that, the numbers don't tell you about the schedule, okay? So here's a look at Tennessee's games and how, what they fared in terms of yards, all right? So against Chattanooga, they allowed 227 yards. Against NC State, 143 yards. Against Kent State, 112 yards. And in that game against Kent State, like they had 700 yards of offense, right? So those early season games kind of tipped the scales. Now, what's more realistic is the games against the SEC, right? You look at the fact that they allowed 222 yards against Oklahoma, 431 yards against Arkansas, which is really an eye-opener, and then against Florida, 361. So over those games, they've actually been allowing 338 yards of offense per game. So when you look at it that way, instead of their first 3, and you look at their last 3, their defense isn't as dominant as their number 2 overall ranking. Does that make sense? And I think it also paints the picture that the SEC is like, we're going to continue to hit on the word parity. Like, games in the SEC are hard. I don't think they absolutely dominated Oklahoma. I felt that Tennessee was never in a position to lose that game, but I wasn't completely blown away by the performance of by Tennessee against Oklahoma. I really wasn't. I thought it was a good road win. At that time, it was like one of the marquee matchups, but I wasn't completely blown away with Tennessee's performance. Jordan, what's up? Jordan, inside the comment box, says, just watched film on Tennessee's last 2 games. This should be Kane Womack's breakout game because Tennessee's offense gashes up 3-3-5. Defense, and that's the defense they run themselves. Max Tooney's chiming in and saying Arkansas ran all over them offensively. Yeah, I mean, look, 431 yards, and I think Alabama's averaging 350 a game on offense themselves. And then Florida had 361 in this recent overtime game. So then I was like, oh, so what is Alabama doing? Here's a look at what Alabama has done. And look, okay, so before we get to this graphic, which is scary, look what these 2 teams have in common. And they're all against SEC opponents, okay? The first 3 cupcakes, you're doing your job. First 3 cupcakes, doing your job. I mean, 309, 290, that's not really what we want to see. But look how drastic it changed in SEC play. 222, 431, 361. And you look to Alabama, and you're like, whoa. Look at those. I mean, I guess 290 is pretty good. I mean, they were playing with their backup quarterback, too. That's just a lot of yards. Man, in those last 3 games, that's why we're at this anxiety point, right, in our lives. 519, 418, 374. 374 against South Carolina. Yo, that's not it. 309 against South Florida, that's not it. 290 against Wisconsin with the backup quarterbacks, not it. So, and I know there's some amazing content creators out right now that have, kind of broken down Alabama's defense and talked about the lack of adjustments. And, I mean, that's what they're talking about. Look at that. Look at that. That's pretty scary. I don't feel, maybe I'm wrong. I just don't feel that Tennessee has an offense to be able to move the football against Alabama as effectively as these teams did. Maybe comparable to South Carolina. They run the ball really well, though. This Dylan Sampson guy, he's going to get 20 carries. They just don't have, like, time of possession. They have, like, an up-tempo feed the running back system. But this is, like, I should have a viewer discretion graphic over this. Todd brings up an interesting point, too, is like holding a team under 300 yards is pretty impressive. Kind of like, that's like the old, like holding a team to like 10 points, right? Like you hold a team like 10 points or under, that's hard to do. One more time looking at Tennessee. So if we're going off Todd's, fact that holding teams under 300 is impressive. You did it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and then Arkansas kind of did what they wanted. That was the game that they lost. So, I don't know. I found it interesting just kind of looking at the two teams. I want to talk about keys to the game and how I think Alabama could beat Tennessee. Again, I'm confident in this game. I think that, and it has nothing to do with the past history between these two teams. I had to transition myself, I guess, after Vanderbilt to realize like every single game, like nothing in the past really ever matters to like present day. But there was a time that it did, because I covered Alabama for so many years where it was just dominating football. Not to say that a dominating team is better than a team that just wins. I just think college football has changed that much like that. Okay. Here are my keys to the game. Let me know if you agree with them. I'm open to feedback. Actually, if you want to post like your key to the game, even if it's like 2, post one inside the comment box. So what I have for keys to the game against Tennessee is I have take the momentum early. And that's always something that you want to see. And you know what? Alabama's, maybe someone has the stats in here, but they seem to win a lot of the coin toss. I would like to see Alabama take the football first. Alabama's offense on opening drives, they've been really successful at putting points on the board. And I think Nick Sheridan, for the small grievances we have with Nick Sheridan, some of the things that just kind of don't make sense, I feel like his offense is never 100% fluid after the first drive. We kind of go different places. It's like kind of good, and then it's weird, and then it's good, and then there's a big play, and then there's a stall. There's like no rhythm. But for the first offensive drive, Nick Sheridan will cook you. He will absolutely cook you. So if you're Alabama, I take the ball and I go right down the field, or I hit, one of my playmakers for a big play. And if you take the momentum, I think Tennessee, I think the sales of that in their orange out, I think they'll feel it right in the chest from the jump. Because what Tennessee fans, they still have PTSD from playing Coach Saban all those years. And they still think nobody's caught up to the fact that this is like a parody game. They're still like Alabama, they're going to come in and dominate. And if Alabama scores on that opening possession, they will take the sails out of that stadium, and Tennessee fans will be like, wow, like here it comes again. So take the momentum early. What I would really like to see, and they don't really do this, and I have this kind of, I'm jumping a few spots here, but I'm curious to see if they can really have a sustaining drive. Like just an impose your will, Jam Miller, Jalen Milroe, maybe a Justice Haynes, like something that is like a 15-play drive that's just dominating you. The thing is, That's really not part of their game. Like, they will just knock you out on the first punch, which is fine. But if Alabama is able to just completely just run the football and just, that man, there's nothing more deflating than a team that goes 16 plays in 10 minutes and scores a touchdown. You're just like, ugh. That's happened to Alabama a lot this year too. Eliminate penalties that extend Tennessee drives. It seems like that's an obvious, but how many times have we seen a penalty on like third down? It's like a hand to the face, or it's like a roughing the passer. It seems like that's a common theme with this defense too. Can someone post how many penalties there were against Tennessee last time they went up to Knoxville? Was it 15 or 17? Lynn says, I think we need to do a better job on first and second downs. We're giving up manageable three touchdowns. Yeah, the roughing the passer, man. There's just been plays like penalties that have just continued to extend drives for opposing teams. Johnny, what's up, man? Looks like Johnny is a Tennessee fan. The other thing is, like, this running back, he's a problem. Going into this game, he's a problem. During the game, he'll be a problem. It'll be really challenging to stop him for 24 carries that he gets the football. You've seen it before. This offense, they spread you completely wide, and they just run this guy up the middle. And if it's like a option, then your quarterback, he can run too, and he's pretty good. You know what? He had some pretty good throws against Florida. But overall, he doesn't have the best deep ball. But shoot, man, if Lenora Sellers can go 74% against Alabama, I mean, who knows what Nico can do? I don't, he doesn't have the best downfield, but he's a great athlete. He can run. And this running back, I think he might be one of the more underrated running backs in the SEC. Watch some of their games. He's good. And like I was saying earlier, like, I know it's not really part of their game. I don't know if it'll be part of their game. But, like, just a consistent ground attack that takes the air out. Even if it's designed quarterback runs, I don't care. Just move the chains methodically. Keep the defense on the field. Make them tired. Like, own them. My next point is third and fourth down defensive adjustments. I mean, this is where things have really gone in the wrong direction for Alabama in the last three games. And I think it has certainly contributed to, look at these last three games and look at like Georgia, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina. What did all these teams have in common? They were all great Vanderbilt and South Carolina scored touchdowns on fourth downs. Georgia was 5 of 5 on fourth downs. Vanderbilt was like 12 of 17, and South Carolina was like above 50% on third downs. So that's why I say when we look to third and fourth down defensive adjustments, that might be the biggest area where Coach Kane Womack is struggling, right? And the entire defense as a whole is that last point. And then just when you've made an adjustment or when you've made a big play, you go back up to the second point, and it's been like some sort of penalty that has extended the drive. So that might be the most critical factor right there, is the third and the fourth down defensive adjustments. It's crazy to think that, like, Vanderbilt hit Alabama for a touchdown on fourth down, and so did South Carolina. Like, that just does not happen. And Shane brings up a really good point. I think last year, the coaching staff, I don't know who is making the adjustments at halftime, if Coach Saban makes those adjustments or Kevin Steele or T-Rob. But I'm going to tell you this. If there's a major difference between this year's team and just last year's, just the two teams since it's just fresh, last year's defensive coaches made I'm talking like 10 out of 10 defensive adjustments. 10 out of 10. Then that comes to experienced coaches. Those guys made incredible. Think about, look, there was a lot of games last year where Alabama played like complete, you know what, at the first half. And then the second half, those guys, they changed the moment. Kind of like Kirby did in this game against Bama early on. This year, the second half adjustments, I don't even know what I'd rank them. It's like a 3 out of 10. But what keeps you in the game is the fact that you have just this, you know, dynamic offense that can just fire right back. And Shane, I would agree with that too. The offensive adjustments, the offense seems to lose steam in the second half, other than the fact that when they need to make a big play. Right? Would you agree with me on that? Like in the second half, the offense is, you're like, what the hell? Where's the offense at? And then they'll like fall behind, and then they'll hit you with a big play to like take the lead. And you're like, okay, there it is. It's really weird. But the first half, I mean, the offense is on point for the most part. Then my last point, I just threw it out there, like, prepare for the shovel pass. Either run the shovel pass with Alabama's offense, or just like prepare for it, because you know Tennessee's going to use it. I mean, this is copycat. And I would take my chance. If I'm playing Alabama right now, I would run the shovel pass at some point in the game, because if you look statistically and you go off like algorithms and you look at numbers, what would you say that, I'm sure we could look it up if we just did a little bit of film work, right? Is like, I think, what have they faced? 4 shovel passes? And all of those have gone for what, like an average of like 16 yards? I might come out running the shovel pass. Army's bringing up a good point. Allowed a lot of sacks against South Carolina. Yeah, that was interesting. And also, Tennessee has allowed 10 quarterback sacks in the last 3 games against SEC competition. So, you know, they've showed a little bit of vulnerability in terms of their pass protection as well. But, those South Carolina, Coach Kalen DeBoer, he did say this before they played South Carolina. He said that their edge rushers were really good. He was right. Those guys were fantastic. They might be some of the best edge rushers that Alabama's faced so far this year. Those guys are good. I don't know their names, but they were great. They were really, really talented. Yeah, Sammy. Yeah, South Carolina, man, that's a good team. I mean, they're not like a good team, but they're pretty tough to handle on a week-to-week basis. All right, let's look at the college football schedule for this week. I kind of just like underlined some teams. I'm not really feeling too much I don't really have too many upset picks this week. Usually I do. I don't know. Maybe you can sway me another direction. Here's a look at the ACC. I like to break it up by conference. So on Thursday night, that's tonight, you have Boston College and Virginia Tech. I guess I'm taking Virginia Tech. I think home field over there, I think these two teams are probably the same. You know, I didn't realize that Virginia Tech had 21 returning starters from last year. This should actually be an entertaining game. You know, Bill O'Brien is, I guess, punching a little bit above his belt. I don't know. Taking Virginia Tech. I'm going to be watching, or at least have it on my phone, Duke and Florida State. Duke's favored by 3 in that game. You know, things are off the rails in Tallahassee. Miami taking on Louisville. Louisville was ranked at one point in time. Miami is favored by 4.5 in this game. Miami's kind of been, cardiac kids in the last couple of games, right? Found a way to beat Virginia Tech, found a way to beat Cal, ranked number 6. I don't know. I don't think Louisville's it. I don't think Louisville will beat them. I think if there's anyone to beat Miami in the ACC, it'll be Clemson or Syracuse. And I don't think they even have Syracuse or Clemson on their schedule. They'd have to play them in the back end. Clemson's playing really good football. No one's talking about them, which they probably love. But against competition, they're playing good. Notre Dame taking on Georgia Tech. I haven't even really followed Georgia Tech following their first win of the season. I don't know. Notre Dame's ranked 12th, and then Cal taking on NC State, and then SMU. SMU is a pretty good squad, too. Here's a look at the Big 12. Up at the top, you got BYU taking on Oklahoma State. This could be an interesting game. I see BYU's favored by, 9 points? This could be interesting. That's Friday night. Other games that kind of stand out. I guess it's Colorado and Arizona one, right? I mean, those games seem to always be somewhat interesting. Arizona favored by 3. I'll take Colorado in that game. Iowa State's undefeated. They're 14-point favorite over Gus Malzahn in Central Florida. Right? Like, I'm not really feeling too many, upset, picks this week. Here's the Big Ten. Oregon taking on Purdue and West Lafayette. That might be moderately. Oregon plays a lot of games on Fridays. Jarvis mentions is that Texas is now 5-point favorites against Georgia. So it slid up, right? It was 3.5. Max, I don't know if Travis Hunter is playing for Colorado. I thought I saw Coach Prime said that he is. Indiana's undefeated as well. That's another team. I could see. I don't know. I could see that game against Nebraska being tight. Michigan and Illinois. I'd probably still take Michigan. I don't know. I'm flipping coins here. And then USC against Maryland. I would imagine USC, but they seem to find a way to lose games. And then Iowa and Michigan State. Here's a look at the SEC. Yo, the SEC is just there's just good football. Like with the way that things have changed, this is the Premier League, right? We're waiting for Auburn to get relegated. Them and Mississippi State on relegation watch. If you're a Premier League soccer fan, you know what I'm talking about. All right, Auburn taking on Missouri. You know what? I'm going to take Auburn. I'm going to take Auburn to beat Missouri. I don't know why. It's only 4.5. Anybody else? I know this is hard to ask you to pick Auburn over anybody, but I think they get their first SEC win beating Missouri. And I don't know. I could see it being like an overtime type game. I think Auburn wins. Am I crazy on that? South Carolina, Oklahoma. I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of, have a little bit more respect for South Carolina following that game last week. Oklahoma, I mean, they're coming off a big loss to Texas. I just don't think, I would imagine that Oklahoma plays Alabama as best they can towards the end of the year. But I don't know. I think South Carolina, from what I've seen with the two teams, I think South Carolina's a better team. It's only a 1.5, the line, so it looks like a coin flip game. Maybe Oklahoma will win that. I don't know. Taking Bama against Tennessee. We'll talk more about that in our score prediction show, which will be tomorrow. I haven't even thought of a score. I'm thinking kind of like Alabama by 10, but I haven't put a score down yet. Texas A&M, I have them beating Mississippi State to go. They'll be 4-0 in SEC play. LSU against that. Look, I think LSU's playing some pretty good football now. I do like their quarterback. I don't know, but you know who else I like? I like Sam Pittman. I think he's a good coach. He seems like a nice guy, too. Vanderbilt's playing Ball State. Take Vandy. Texas and Georgia. I'm taking Texas. There it is, -5. I'm taking Texas. The more that I've thought about this game, I would really like to see Georgia win this game because of the drama. I would like to see, and then I think it would help Alabama just, kind of create Alabama beat Georgia, Georgia beat Texas, that sort of banter that we could talk about going forward. But the more that I look at it, and I don't know, I just feel that Texas, specifically because this game is in Austin, these guys are playing some pretty good football right now. And Auburn has, or Georgia rather, after this, in a couple weeks, they go to Ole Miss. Lynn's taking Georgia. What's up, Javion? Good morning to you. Yeah, so we do have a couple fans taking Georgia in that game. And then in this last one, I guess I guess that's another tight game. Look, 1.5. I think I'm taking Florida. I don't know. I think they're just, they're fighting, I guess, as best they can. That should be a good game. All these games should be entertaining, minus that, I guess, that Vanderbilt Ball State one. But all of these are rather interesting to me. Quincy has Texas by 14. $4 tickets for the Vanderbilt game. This was interesting. So yesterday, there was a soundbite that went around. Coach Jamarcus Shepard, who's absolutely great for Alabama in terms of coaching up the wide. I like those guys that have that dog mentality. It would be really fun probably to play for Jamarcus Shepard. I really think it would be. And I think, down the road or whenever he'll get his opportunity to be a head coach, most of these guys will. I mean, Mo Lindquist, he'll be a head football coach again soon. I don't know if it'll be this next year, but these guys are like future head coaches. We all know that. But yesterday, I put it up as a YouTube clip. I put it on Facebook too. He was talking about Ryan Williams hitting a freshman wall. And I think he was kind of exaggerating and kind of playing around with it. But he said that, the production last week against South Carolina, it wasn't there. So Ryan Williams, maybe he's hit a wall and that he wouldn't double team him. I think kind of two things. Number one, I think he was playing. And number two, I think he's trying to get to Ryan Williams. Actually, three things. He's trying to get to Ryan Williams. And number three, I think he's, saying Tennessee, there's no reason to double team him. We all know that is false. Look, Ryan Williams, I mean, if you look at the production that he's had, this season, I mean, if you follow, I follow the NFL. I'm an avid NFL fan, like from the outside. You know that players go up and down, but I mean, the season that he's had, I mean, this isn't a wall. It's just kind of there was a low point during that game. But I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. This is still, in my opinion, the most dangerous wide receiver in college football. Now, that's a big statement, considering the amount of talent. And I understand wide receiver for Ohio State, who's also a freshman, which is crazy. He's ultra talented, but I think, 4 receptions for 32 yards, not too worried about it. I mean, I think that he'll continue this pace. Now, I mean, going into the season, you were like, is he going to catch for – I asked this. You guys didn't. I was like, is he going to catch for more than 500 yards? You guys were like, absolutely. Now it's like he catches over 1,000 yards this season. Ben has Georgia losing by 14 to Texas. So I think Ryan Williams continues it. And I think, like I was saying earlier this week, I really think Jalen Milroe has a really big game against Tennessee. I do. And when you look at Tennessee's defense, I explained why. They've given up yards against SEC competition. I think they'll give up yards against Alabama. I do. Kind of rounding it out, talking about Coach Kalen DeBoer again. I mean, if you ever find yourself in like kind of an anxiety standpoint, and I don't even have it on the board right here, but number one in recruiting, hard to do when you just took over a program. You talk about kind of leading the ship. I mean, man, I would have give him an A+ in recruiting. I mean, and this guy, Courtney Morgan, who we're really not talking about right now because it's not really recruiting season, man, bringing in somebody like him, has been absolutely phenomenal. Johnny, take it easy, man. Johnny, head back tomorrow, man. We do our score prediction show, and it's a call-in show. So if you want to call in tomorrow, man, and give us a score prediction, call back. Same time, 9 a.m. Central Time. Appreciate you, man. But this guy gets a lot. And, when you're the head man, you get a lot. But I think, you know what? It's mostly all on Kane Womack. Right? Like, let me ask you something, honestly. And this may be touchy. And I don't think this would ever happen. I think it's too early. But do you think, like, if you had to make a decision right now, you're the head of the like a CEO company, or you're head of like Alabama football, would you honestly fire Kane Womack right now? Seriously, I wouldn't. I'm watching the direction of it, but like, would you like? Because it is. I'm serious. Like, it's getting serious. People like Womack is like target number one, and I don't think Alabama fans can deal with another couple seasons or another like the rest of the games having a defense that is giving up a ton of yards because of Pete Golding. We already did that with Pete Golding. And the interesting thing was Coach Saban kept him on for a long time. Coach Saban really liked him. See, people are saying no. All right, it's good to see. I'm going to say no too. There's a couple schools that have made adjustments like in season. There you go. Deuce says it best. The seat is hot. Yeah. Bama Mike believes the defense will get better. But Saban had a good way of kind of explaining things that made sense to me. But man, like, I don't think a defensive coordinator, like, I think Pete Golding got a lot of slack. And they kept, believing in him. The guy, if you listen to him, he could definitely break it down. But in terms of like transitioning it to the field, it didn't go. And I didn't mean to make anybody mad on Facebook with this graphic that I posted, but what they saw was the close scores. That's what made them mad. I was looking at it as wins. I would prefer, big. Every once in a while, these close wins they're good for the numbers, but like people were like, well, look at these scores. Yeah, he won, but they were tight games, and I was like, damn, they are tight games. Yo, Chris, Pete Golding could talk, man. I didn't hear the Pete Golding rumors. I don't know what they are. But I was like, damn, he beat Mel Tucker, Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, Lincoln Riley, Kirby Smart. Josh Heupel's a good coach too. People don't really talk too much about Josh Heupel, but of all the coaches that Tennessee's had, Josh Heupel, he hasn't playing good football. Much better than, the previous few coaches that they've had. We talked about the freshman this week and the fact that like Jalen Mbakwe's, he's such a shining star, and I'm glad that he's not forced into like an absolute starting position yet because he's not ready, but he's ready to play. Like he'll play against Tennessee and he'll probably make plays. Great open field tackler. Imagine imagine next season with these guys as sophomores. I didn't know this. I didn't know that Xavier Brown would be this good. And has he been beat? Yeah. Have guys got behind him? Yeah. But I didn't expect Xavier Brown to be this good. I really didn't. The guy is, man, he's it. And he's going to be tested, and there'll be times where we're going to have to be highly critical of him. But he's really, really talented, man. That is really impressive. Of course, the things that Ryan Williams have done, they're not even human. But I expect like another freshman to have a really big impact. Other than him and Xavier Brown's, he started every single game. He has 324 snaps. He'll be a freshman All-American for sure. I'd have to, do a lot of research in terms of how many true freshmen are starting across the country at the corner position. But man, Xavier and he's playing now against high level competition, against big wide receivers. Yeah, and we're starting to see a little bit more each week of Jalen Mbakwe. I don't even think Jalen Mbakwe played cornerback in high school. Corner, I think he played safety. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit of him at safety. I wonder if that's in the cards, right? As we kind of round out the show, I'll hit on this. I 100% agree with you, Jarvis. What a win does for Alabama. I think right now, kind of checking the pulse of like the fan base, I feel there is a lot of anxiety about kind of the direction of the program. Like, people are still really optimistic about Alabama football for the most part, but I think there is a certain amount of worry that things aren't as good as they once were. And college football has changed and whatever. I really feel that a convincing win over really any win over Tennessee, maybe not a last second like field goal to win or something like that, but like if Alabama wins by like a touchdown or 10 points, I think that they climb up again in the rankings. And I think the fans will have a lot of kind of that worry taken away, because Tennessee is now looked at as a really good football team, which hasn't necessarily been the case for the last, several seasons. I think people probably think that Tennessee is legit. I mean, we've had this conversation for the last 5 weeks. Like, should Tennessee be like a top 5 team? I know they're number 11 right now. I have them in my top 10. They played a weak front end schedule, and they've been playing SEC comp, which has been tough for everybody. But most importantly, I think it continues to give this program momentum, because they certainly need it. And it proves that Coach Kalen DeBoer can win in a big-time atmosphere in SEC, which is important because after Tennessee, you have a trip to LSU, down the road, and a game to Oklahoma, and then a rivalry game. Plus, who knows where the playoff games are going to be, maybe the SEC championship, I don't know. You're going to have to play outside of Bryant-Denny Stadium a handful of times towards the next few months. Lynn is saying a big win in Knoxville would really show you that the last 2 guys commit, and both being DL, you could lose them for sure. Shane Bean is saying that Xavier Brown a first round pick in the future. GSP, I 100% agree, man. All the middle of the pack teams are capable of beating the good teams in the SEC. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. Oh, tomorrow, too, we'll have kind of like your favorite cigar or whatever. I have a cigar. A couple years ago, Alabama, this is an extra room in my house that I have like as a studio. And I smoked a cigar in here when they won like a couple years ago. I shouldn't have done it. It took a while for the cigar, but I was excited. It was cool. So I don't know if I'll do it again. Maybe so. I mean, smoking a cigar and, on the live stream is pretty tight. I like the way it looks. Hopefully I get the opportunity to do it again. But yeah, because I got the kids' room stuff, I don't know. The cigar, the smoke kind of just sits. Hey, I appreciate you guys being here today. Thank you so much to the 240 that are watching today. Kyle Henderson on Bama Football on YouTube. You know where to find me. As news happens, I got you covered with videos throughout the day. Follow us on Facebook, Alabama Crimson Tide on YouTube, a good way to interact. Of course, these will be uploaded as podcasts to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I hope you have an amazing day. I am right-handed, but everybody that lives in this house is left-handed. I'm surrounded in it. Each of my kids are left-handed, which is crazy, right? I hope you guys have an amazing day. Definitely support all the other content creators out there, big or small. One more time, thoughts and prayers to Big Sexy, who passed away just recently, part of Mick's show. I know I reached out to him yesterday, and told him thoughts and prayers out to him and his loved ones. I know they're, dealing with that. Big Elmore, is I never met him. I never, I'm not part of that ecosystem, but I know it affected Mick. And, if it affects Mick, it affects me too, because that's a good dude. So thoughts and prayers, and to anybody that's going through anything, whether it might be unspoken, thoughts and prayers with you. Power through it. Keep the consistency. Keep the positivity. Be good people out there. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk Alabama Crimson Tide one more time from beautiful Hollywood, Alabama. This is Kyle Henderson of Bama Football on YouTube. Have an amazing Thursday, and I'll be